Welcome, Martians, Meeps, and Mind Thralls, but not transphobes, to episode 495 of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 28th of November, 2023, and featuring The Star Beast, written by or adapted by Russell T Davies, and starring David Tennant as the Doctor and Catherine Tate as Donna Noble. I am Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and it seems my coffee maker does not like pre-ground coffee grounds. With me are color commentator Alex Fireheart.
They really want you to keep coffee away from the TARDIS console.
And technical director Mad Matt Winchell.
Oh, lordy, is the day is long. Been an interesting week already.
Ah, yes, the TARDIS, despite having a coffee maker, still is a tea being and is offended at the presence of coffee.
I can't blame it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
So
did find that funny. I would have said that in text thing that I find it funny that by coincidence we had two stories in a row where something comes up about keeping coffee away from the console.
So, in recognition of the fact that our recent podcasts have gone long and we probably have a lot to talk about with today's episode, we should probably keep banter under 10 minutes.
Yes.
15 at the most.
I shall watch the clock, and when I say you're at 10 minutes, you need to cut it. Get to the point.
Fair,
2 more sentences here, done.
To be fair, you usually give the longest description of your week.
Usually I have the most chaos.
What I was saying about coffee grounds is my recent Instacart, I guess the Myers near me didn't have whole bean coffee, so the Instacart driver picked up grounds, and I've noticed that I think it's because the water comes down too fast in the brewing process. But since I've been using grounds instead of grinding it myself, there's always grounds in the coffee. Luckily, it sinks to the bottom of the pot. So as long as I'm careful, it's not like in the coffee I'm drinking. But it's I've just noticed it and had to be rinsing out the pot constantly, which I did not have to do when I was grinding it myself.
I guess not much happened for me this week, thankfully. I mean, I will say that my mental health got to a very low place yesterday, because it was just like a guy I've been chatting with seemingly wasn't online, so of course suddenly, like with last week, my brain's like, oh god, have I done something? Does he feel uncomfortable?
Right.
Whatever. Turned out that he just like zonked out and didn't wake up until like 2 in the afternoon, and then had like done some cleaning, so he probably just stayed off Discord to like not be distracted. So that was kind of good. That was another, it's just me overthinking shit. But I've also just been stressed out about work, so that didn't help. Because I just like the shifts that are definitely freeing up, that they start like next week, I think. Yeah, like this time next week. So It's like either I'm getting those or I'm getting ones that would still allow me to have Wednesdays off, but I really need to know like now.
Right.
Why is no decision being made? Like a decision should have been made by now, one way or the other, so I know. And it's just, I'm like, it's getting to a point where when I go in tomorrow, I'm just going to have to sit down with the supervisor that I've been talking with, and I'm going to have to just be as blunt as possible without being like, saying shit that would get me fired, but being just very much like, I can't focus properly at work because this is so stressful. Something needs to give here.
Right.
Either you appreciate the fact that I have been putting up with being stuck on part-time work for almost 10 years without leaving. I'm owed shit now. Like, that's where I'm getting to the mindset of. I'm owed shit for staying there this long and not just pissing off by now. Like, I mean, I've mainly stuck with them so long because I feel like most other places wouldn't be as accommodating, that I can't drive, and that I want Wednesdays off for this. So, whereas most places will be like, no, fuck you, 9 to 5 or whatever.
And we're not paying you, so if it comes down to one versus the other, you know which to choose.
Yeah, like it is at that point where I'm that desperate, where if these ones where I would have to be working today, I've just, yeah. It's why I brought up in text of like, we might potentially, because like, that's just it. I don't want to lose this.
Right.
But it's at the point where like, financially, I literally can't afford to, if the only hours I can get means I'll have to start working Wednesdays. Unfortunately, so be it.
Right.
Like,
I get it.
it would have to be a matter of if Matt was never working Sundays your time, and we were able to like push the start time
So trying to remember how many
earlier.
Sundays I've worked. I've only worked 2 Sundays in the last. No, 1 Sunday in the last month. And closes at 9 o'clock, so it's like 2 hours, an hour or so before. Well, if I have to do close, it might be a half hour before we start podcast. I'd be back home-ish by.
Because like really the main issue there is that the bill would have to be have an early start the next day.
Yeah, if
we would either have to like have an absolute cutoff, and we would have to be like timing everything down to the second, or we would basically have to just no longer chat when we're done. We would basically just be like, done.
Done. All right. Good night. See y'all later.
Yeah,
sleep. Yeah.
I already don't do anything on Wednesdays as a way to recover from being up late on Tuesday night. I can't. Yeah. I physically could not do anything Mondays because all of my department stuff is on Monday mornings.
Right. So yeah, and it's one of those things that, like, for me, at that point, Mondays for me would be a day off. So even if I just had to wake up way earlier, if we were able to somehow move the start time up, then that would maybe work. But that would have to work for everyone. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, hopefully, because the guy that got those 8 to 4 shifts that I was gunning for, he hasn't shown up in like a week or more.
So his performance has not improved.
So is he? Because I don't know if that's a matter of he's on leave at the moment because it's coming into school holidays here. And some people who have kids do just take this time off, even though he would have had to put in for that like a while ago, and I don't think he would have had enough accrued leave by then. Or it's just like, no one knows what's going on with him. They want to get rid of him, but like legally, it's kind of murky as to whether they can, which is why they're doing performance evaluations at the moment. And it's just like, just make something happen so I can get those.
Okay, that make something happen sounds like make his body be found in a dumpster or something.
We'll make something happen.
All right, for the sake of time, Matt, what's the biggest thing that's going on in your week?
I'm kind of going through some job issues myself, but I'm going to keep those on the down low right now. But due to my but I got my car just the day before Thanksgiving, so I've been literally
Nice.
driving a week now. We are going to be getting
You
paperwork
haven't killed anybody yet, I'm guessing.
Oh no, I haven't hit anything yet. I did have one night where I was a little bit distressed because my mother suddenly went to the hospital, but we figured it's just that she was having heart tremors because of stress for whatever reason that day, and she's going for another checkup tomorrow. And while we're doing that, we're going to update the papers so she can get my car updated so it can be on her insurance.
Mm.
And then I might take it for a long ride yet on the weekend. I'm not sure yet. Other than those couple things, a lot of packages coming in for both things I need for the car for the winter, as well as presents and a couple of gimme self items. In particular, I just got a reaction figure of Dio from, Dio, the lead singer. Used to be on Black Sabbath.
Oh, when you said Dio, I thought you meant from JoJo.
No, that's named after Dio.
Yeah, I was gonna say
the rock star singer.
Yeah, Ronnie James Dio.
Yes, Ronnie James Dio. And I've got a Mole Man coming in the mail yet, and I got a Iron Giant from my nephew. I'll be giving that to him for his birthday in a few months' time.
Nice.
Otherwise, I also have a present for my youngest nephew. He's getting a little character set from Minecraft. And everything else for Christmas is pretty much done for the most part, as far as I'm aware, unless other things come up. And usually I wait for my brother-in-law the week of because we'll just exchange stuff over Steam. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, nothing else other than the comic books I also bought and finally finished that franchise. And we'll talk about that later.
Right. Okay, so it sounds like a segue into tonight's show. So we have our Doctor Who birthdays and news. We have Breaking the Rumor Mill. Some geek talk that we are going to time with the stopwatch.
Mm-hmm.
We have our episode summary. Before we go into our review, we're going to talk a bit about some of the social issues that they did well or did poorly. Then we'll have our review, final thoughts, and ratings. So moving on to Alex with the birthdays.
Yep. So first up on the 23rd of November, quite obviously, Doctor Who turned 60. And as well, which it's interesting because I don't think I realized before that other actors that have been on the show also shared a birthday with the show, but we have Michelle Gomez, who played Missy from series 8 to 10, turned 57. And Michael Goff, the original toy maker in season 3, better known as Alfred Pennyworth, among many other roles, would have been 107, but died in 2011 at the age of 94. So still a pretty good run.
Yep.
Yeah.
Moving
Which
on
makes sense. I mean, he was Alfred, so he had to be an effective old man.
On the 25th of November, we have Philippa Coulthard, who played Georgie Turner in K9, turned 31. Additionally, on the 25th, we have Sophie Hopkins, who played April in Class, turned 33. Also on the 25th, we have Simon Fisher-Becker, who played Dorian Moldova in Series 6, turned 62. And lastly, out of the 25th birthdays, we have Paul Copley, who played Clement MacDonald in Torchwood Series 3, turned 79. Moving on to the 27th of November, we have Samantha Bond, who played Mrs. Wormwood in Sarah Jane Adventures Series 1 and 2, and also mostly well known for playing Miss Moneypenny in the Pierce Brosnan era of Bond, turned 62. Also on the 27th, we have Verity Lambert, who was the producer for seasons 1 to 3 of the classic era, turned 88. Which, not gonna
first
lie,
time you said classic and not old.
I think I like in my head it kind of they're interchangeable. So I'll jump back and forth between. But anyway, finally, on the 28th of November, we have Karen Gillan, who played Amy Pond series 5 to 7, and also known for playing Gamora. Yes, not Gamora, fucking Nebula.
Nebula.
My bad. In the Marvel movies, turned 36. Not gonna lie, I didn't know there was that small an age gap between us.
Yeah. I want to point out we have a recurring character from every Doctor Who show except for classic Doctor Who on this list.
Yeah. Verity Lambert's like this. Yeah, Verity Lambert's like the soul did more than one thing, technically, or like, and even, but that was producer, so not a recurring acting,
not an acting character,
Yeah. But yes, happy birthday to Doctor Who itself, Michelle, Michael, Philippa, Sophie, Simon, Paul, Samantha, Verity, and Karen.
Right. Moving on to our Doctor Who episode news. We start off with the streaming times for Disney Plus. And I think this article is not quite as convenient as... Where is... Okay, this article is just poorly structured, but it was from one of our normal sources. But the Disney Plus official times have been announced. Oh, and I tried... there was a better link at one point, but I'm not sure where that was. So, but the short version is basically that at 6:30 Greenwich Mean Time is when Doctor Who airs on BBC One and iPlayer. And this may or may not have been a stipulation of the Disney deal because it's the first time this has happened, that the specials are also airing at the same time worldwide on those countries that get it on Disney Plus. So I was watching the episode at this.
Yeah, I'm willing to wager that that's something that Disney
bought out of them. It's definitely new in the U.S. I'm pretty sure it's definitely new in Australia.
Yeah,
which is why the times were kind of odd in.
Disney
I think
just
the
be
Australian
like
times were like 4 a.m. right?
Yeah, here it was either depending on where you were in Australia, it was somewhere between 4 a.m. to like possibly earlier, possibly later. Because here, like in my time zone, it was 4:30, but in like the central time zone in Australia, I think it was 4 a.m.
Gotcha. So yeah, after years of needing to avoid Twitter for 6 hours every time a Doctor Who episode aired, unless you are matey the episode, it was very nice that I was able to watch it at more or less the exact same time as the Britons.
Yeah, because the stipulation over here when it was ABC iView that got it was that it would go up on ABC iView after it finished airing in the UK rather than simultaneously.
Whereas on BBC America, it was always like if it aired at 6:30 in England, it would then air again. It would air at 6:30, in Eastern time in BBC America.
Yeah, because like it would air like early evening in Australia, like on free-to-air TV, but if you bothered to use ABC iView, you could have watched it basically any time that day after it went up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure when Disney said we'll help fund it, they also went, you airing it somewhere else ahead of time? No. You're airing it everywhere at the same time. It's on our platform now. I guess, we demand it if you want money.
I guess because they're not airing it on it's a streaming service rather than something that has a TV channel attached to it. They're just like, no, we get it at the same time.
Which that makes sense. I remember when the Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2 came out, they would always air at midnight Pacific time because I would finish the podcast. I'd be like, okay, it's like 2 a.m. I wait another hour. It's now 3 a.m. I watch the Mandalorian, then I go to bed.
Yeah.
So yeah, Disney
like,
Plus is not as worried about what time of day it is and whether it's after dinner.
Yeah, I think streaming things are generally, because the thing that I watch that I won't be covering on Geek Talk because it's like a competition show, it always goes up it always goes up on Shudder uh in the at midnight relative to a specific US time zone. So it'll be like 3 in the afternoon or something for me every Tuesday.
I would almost bet money it's based on Pacific time zone just because that's where Hollywood is and so much to do with show business is based on that time zone. But
unless it's
moving
New York,
on.
But yeah.
So we have the overnights for the Star Beast, which had audience figures of 5.08 million viewers in the UK, which made it the second most watched television program of Saturday night behind, say it with me, Strictly Come Dancing, as always, which had 7.67 million watching. There's something about ITV, which doesn't matter because it was less than Doctor Who. This was much better than, they say, the previous season, the previous special, the previous episode of Doctor Who, Power of the Doctor, had an overnight figure of 3.71 million. In this figure, it's an estimate of people
up a
who
couple
watched
million,
on the
but
day of
we'll have to see
transmission.
what the extended will be when it gets.
So next week we'll have the full 10-day. The audience of the appreciation index was 84, which has been the highest Doctor Who score since World Enough and Time, which was in 2017. So it's already a more liked episode than the entire Chibnall era.
Which is someone who was at least more positive on that era than a lot of other people. That's a bit sad, but we'll see how some of these assholes react as RTD's era goes on.
Right. We also have some information on Disney Plus, where the Star Beast is as of when this article came out, which was today or probably yesterday because I think they go off UK time. Was currently classed as the third most watched film worldwide. I'm guessing for that week or some sort of time period.
Yeah.
And is currently in first position in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and Turkey.
Yeah, that feels like it makes sense. At least I'm not surprised it is for Australia and New Zealand.
Right. Moving on to future episodes, we have the official synopses for the remaining 60th anniversary specials. So they're all pretty vague and pretty short. We don't have the full paragraph synopses. But for Wild Blue Yonder, it's the TARDIS takes the Doctor and Donna to the furthest edge of adventure. To escape, they must face the most desperate fight of their lives with the fate of the universe at stake. Okay, so I guess high stakes, that's actually something new that we didn't know about the episode. We still don't know anything about what's going on in the episode.
Yeah.
I think if the fate of the universe is at stake, we can rule out some of the more ridiculous theories. Like there was one theory that they're now that it's set inside the sonic screwdriver. I really doubt that that's the case. I mean, I doubted that was the case before reading the synopsis. I even more doubt that it's the case now.
Yeah. I think that was more like, I mean, I could see some people genuinely thinking that, but I think the only speculation I saw about that was I mean, it would be kind of bizarre and weird, but so why not?
It's a testament to how little we know about the episode.
Yeah.
Although I'm My theory at the moment is that it has something to do with 1970s Doctor Who. Since since the Star Beast was an 80s story and the Giggle is a return of a 60s character. But we shall see.
Yeah.
Then we have the Giggle, which is the giggle of a mysterious puppet is driving the human race insane. When the Doctor discovers the return of the terrifying toy maker, he faces a fight he can never win. And I think he does win, actually, because usually Doctor Who episodes don't end with the world being, destroyed.
Right.
But, it's a blurb.
I mean, I'll give them points.
We've decided
for the...
before any of the specials have aired that they're all going to do terribly, so we're all canceling it.
I mean, I'll generally give whoever came up with the blurb the points for the alliteration of terrifying toy maker.
All right, continuing on with future episode news, and this doesn't come with a label as to what they're filming, but I'm pretty sure they've been in the middle of filming what I guess RTD and Bad Wolf are calling season 2. While we were watching the episode, the Doctor Who team was busy setting up and filming, involving Ncuti Gatwa, Millie Gibson, and Jonah Hauer-King. And what people who have been, taking photos of the set of the locations, sets seem to have noticed is that some of the props that were brought in were mannequins, which is causing speculation that we're going to have an Auton episode coming up soon.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, so...
Yeah. I mean, I'm not entirely sure that the Autons need to always use mannequins. They need to be a little more... I mean, they were a little more creative in Terror of the Autons when they had such terrifying contraptions as the comfy chair. But
and like a toy bear or something.
Yeah.
Whatever it was.
Oh, the little troll doll.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we totally need the return of the troll doll. That'll do great with children, I hear. Especially as we watch it as it rips out a father's throat.
It'll give people something to complain about other than pronouns in my Doctor Who. But we're not to that yet. So that was literally that entire piece of news. There are mannequins, and people think that might mean Autons.
Nothing for sure, but it could be interesting.
So moving from episode news to cast and crew news, and I put this under future cast and crew to make a point. Ncuti Gatwa is not the Doctor that audiences have seen on screen yet. Which makes it particularly relevant or particularly odd in that respect. So when An Adventure in Space and Time was put together, they intentionally kind of set it up in a sort of way, like they saved the files, so that whenever it's aired on TV again, they could update it for whoever the current Doctor would be. So, of course, it came out for the 50th anniversary. Matt Smith was the Doctor. For the 60th anniversary, they aired the docudrama again, and this time they put Ncuti Gatwa in his cameo scene. And on one hand, I guess, they want to promote his Doctor, but on the other hand, he's not the Doctor right now. David Tennant is the Doctor, and has been for a year and will be for another couple weeks.
Which does add to the speculation of, is Russell trolling about calling Tennant the 14th? And this is just so to not spoil the twist that it'll be like, oh, well, technically you're not even a proper regeneration. I'm just withholding the next regeneration from coming through. We'll see.
I don't know.
Or it's just looking to the future as far as well, Tennant's only going to be here for 3 specials and then he's
Right.
out.
I
So
think
it would be
it's
a bit
more
awkward.
that.
Yeah.
That and also the fact that they in the 50th they have the 11th Doctor, and then in the 60th they have what appears to be the 10th Doctor.
Yeah. Yeah.
We regress
It would
backwards.
be a bit weird.
In the 70th they somehow bring back Christopher Eccleston. But that was another relatively short piece. And yeah, we move on to video and streaming news. And yeah, that's listed under Alex, so you can take that.
Yep. Doctor Who officially has its own podcast now, which, in a way, I'm almost kind of glad that they didn't try to come up with a snazzy sort of Talking Dead name for it or anything. It's just the official Doctor Who podcast.
It's official
hosted
now.
With the idea that it is a 3-way panel discussion, hosted by Juno Dawson, Terrell Charles, and Crystal D. At least one of which I know Crystal has done stuff with the Doctor Who YouTube channel before, so that wasn't a shock.
It doesn't look like any of them actually have anything to do with Doctor Who, other than the extra information that they get that nobody else gets because of this podcast.
Yeah, like I did actually listen to the podcast before, and it was an interesting listen. It's essentially they have like a thing where they are given talking points, and the idea seems to be, from what they were saying, that the talking points are given to them by Russell as like, here's a starting point for a conversation. And also there would be video in the video version on YouTube. There are video interjections, like clips of Russell either posing a question, talking about an element of the episode that just aired, or something that we'll get to later, and his reasoning behind doing that.
I was gonna say I can't speak for Matt because we weren't really talking about it, and I think Matt watched the episode a little later. But Alex and I were really digging into the justifications for certain decisions made in the writing of this episode.
I have some questions of my own too. Don't you worry about that. But I did see some of the stuff you guys posted as well.
I just mean I wasn't sure if you went into all the behind the scenes stuff looking for answers.
No, I didn't. What we were doing. I just assume writing is writing at this point.
But yeah, seemingly this will be. We'll see how long. I feel like this will be like just a thing that sticks around now, because it's, it's fairly. It's names that are cheap to get, which isn't to discount these people, but they're not getting like actors to do it, is what I mean.
It's worth noting,
celebrities.
And I didn't realize this until seeing this episode, this article, but it's being produced for BBC Studios, not for Bad Wolf. So, I mean, at this point, BBC Studios, Bad Wolf, and Big Finish, considering this is James Goss, are all kind of like hand in hand with everything they do. But yeah, it's interesting that this is a BBC baby, not a Bad Wolf baby.
And I think that's just so they can put it out on their official thing, and because it'd be being done through that side. I think from something in this, maybe. Russell approached them to do it, so I guess it was his idea, but the BBC are the ones handling it. Probably just so it's not something else he has to overlook. Something like that, or it was just, hey, here's an idea for something you could do. And he's showrunner, so he's the one who made it happen. But they're keeping it in-house in BBC. Makes sense. It'll be interesting to listen to, and especially that we'll finally have something to look at for behind-the-scenes stuff weekly, to get some stuff because we don't get Unleashed. I was thinking that might end up on Disney Plus, seemingly not.
Yeah, and apparently a YouTube channel started with the intention of uploading Unleashed, but the BBC took down their Star Beast episode. So odds are that channel is not going to be making much accessible to those of us who don't have a way to legally watch it and therefore have the choice only to illegally watch it or to never watch it at all.
Right. Which, as I was talking to Bill earlier, they should either just A, put it on YouTube with ads, or B, just put it on friggin' Disney Plus. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they want to keep it BBC in-house and don't want Disney to touch it, then just put it on YouTube. And just don't make it available on YouTube for the UK, because they can just watch it on iPlayer. You know?
Actually, you can do that.
Alternatively, a VPN could offer to sponsor our episodes, and we could talk about those options.
In any case, moving on. Doctor Who will be getting, at least seemingly only on BBC iPlayer.
I'm gonna say
again.
The British will be getting.
Yeah, the British will be getting on-screen commentary for selected upcoming episodes, which I'm glad that that's the specific wording they use, so it doesn't imply that it's everything will be. It's just very specific.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize it said selected, so yeah, good point.
But I'm glad that they at least clarify that, because it might just be like, I mean, all these specials on the Christmas one, I would assume. And then from there, it might just be like whatever they can get people in to do. Because I would assume the idea is that these commentary tracks will be, so
oh yeah, because it's not Russell doing them. Because I imagine it would be pretty easy to get Russell to sit on a couch and talk for an hour about literally any Doctor Who episode.
Right. Yeah. Seemingly, the Star Beast has one out now, with Tennant and producers Phil Coulson and Vicky DeLoe. So it'll probably be something like that, where it's whatever actor they can get, and some people who are involved in the production in other capacities. I'm almost disappointed that they didn't have the writers who did the Star Beast for the comics on the commentary. That would have been kind of fun, but oh well.
True, considering I know one, if not both of them, are still working in the industry.
They're in behind-the-scenes stuff that they put on YouTube, I think.
Oh, yeah, I believe they're still around. Matter of fact, I think one of them was an artist for, what was it, The Watchmen?
Yes, yes, yeah. The artist for the original Watchmen comic.
And then I forget what the writer did, but I know he was into a couple other things I knew too. So.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, here we go at the back. They will definitely. Well, yeah. As I speculated before, this even confirms it that Wild Blue Yonder will as well. As will the Giggle, as will the Christmas special, the Church on Ruby Road. So at least going by looks of that, maybe I was skimming it and didn't read it correctly, but the implication seems to be at least the specials all will. From
all
there,
the specials, it might just and then selective episodes.
Whatever select episodes of the normal show they decide to do ones for.
And since I didn't mention it in the beginning, but it is relevant, the original writers of the Star Beast comic were Pat Mills and John Wagner, and the artist was Dave Gibbons.
But moving on from that, surprisingly no Candy Jar books.
Big Finish. There's always Big Finish.
So straight on to Big Finish, yeah. Yeah, you know it's slow if there was somehow no big finish. But we have two new releases. First up, Doctor Who: The Box of Terrors, written by Lizzie Hopley and narrated by John Colshaw. That was released on the anniversary of the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who. And on the 28th, we have the 11th Doctor Chronicles: Broken Hearts, written by Lisa McMullen and starring Jacob Dudman and Sophia Ingar. So that's it for the news. On to breaking the rumor mill.
Yes, on to rumors. So, from the people who brought you, there will be a unit spinoff, and there will be a Dalek spinoff. There will be a Sea Devil spinoff. So this is
yes, I can only see good things happening here.
So this is a rumor from the Mirror, and they actually have a good amount of detail behind this, which either makes it very creative or potentially credible. But I'm going to imagine we would hear something from someone else. Very soon if it's credible. But allegedly there will be a 5-part miniseries called The War Between the Land and the Sea, featuring the Sea Devils, and that a large rig made of structural steel was constructed at Wolf Studios Wales and transported to Malta for the purposes of filming this. Now, of course, it's also entirely possible that such a rig was made at Wolf Studios Wales and was used to film in Malta for something completely different, because I don't think Doctor Who is the only thing they're doing.
Yes.
But that is an interesting detail that, if there's any evidence of it, does lend credibility to the whole idea.
It is an eyebrow raiser, yeah.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that could also just mean that maybe Russell wants to use the Sea Devils.
Right.
Maybe it's just a Sea Devil episode and not a spinoff? Just saying.
Possible, yeah.
Because he hasn't had time to play with those toys yet.
Yeah, like maybe the war between land and sea is like something Big Finish is doing, but it could just be something else. It doesn't have to be a Doctor Who related thing.
Oh, so part of this rumor is that allegedly a new limited company, an LTD, was created under Bad Wolf called The War Between Limited. And I mean, I honestly don't know that much about, especially the British TV industry, but I imagine you wouldn't make like a new company to film a 5-part miniseries.
Right. Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure they would just continue under the auspices of Bad Wolf.
make. Yeah, it would I know they'd make a new one of those for like every single like Disney Plus show.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good information. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it wouldn't necessarily be a company that Disney would make. It would be
an LLC,
department.
But yeah, it's kind of like, so when I originally when I first started working in fast food, the way it was set up was that each individual operation, so each restaurant was technically its own company, but then like they all were part of like the larger company owned by the owner. So it was, like, a lot of that was for tax purposes. If something is in one location, it's or has a sometimes it's like for loopholes, like if you only have 10 employees, you don't need to follow the same laws as if you have 100 employees. Some of it's because, like, you might be in a different tax district, so it's easier just to have a separate company, things of that nature. I'm not a tax lawyer and I'm not an accountant, so I can't really give any more detailed information, but I know that that's a thing in other industries.
I will say the confusing thing about when you actually click on the War Between Limited and it takes you to an official thing to show you, this seems to be legit, is that it refers to that this was incorporated on the 24th of August last year. And then you go down, it says previous company names, Bad Wolf, in brackets DG Limited, period 24th of August 22 to 21st of February this year. So does that mean it's just that Bad Wolf Studios is renamed? Like the limited thing has been renamed?
I think
or a
think
location
it
has been renamed,
saying,
or
like, things that were considered to, like, it's basically the part of Bad Wolf is spinning off, is kind of separating from the rest of Bad Wolf, I think is what that means.
Like, not knowing any of this kind of business stuff, it was kind of a head scratcher.
Yeah, I that's what I think. I think that's for the purposes of saying such as, certain properties were under the name of Bad Wolf, and now those properties are going under the name of The War Between, without changing the whole of Bad Wolf. So it's kind of like when you change your name, you're supposed to be like, oh yeah, these are all the former names that I've had, or these are the pen names that I've published under. So it's basically saying, oh, well, why do you have the right to put that on your resume when it says somebody else did it? Because, oh, that somebody else is also me. I think that's what this is. Again, I have literally no training. That's just literally pulling shit from my own experience. That has nothing to do with businesses. But I think that's what it is. But yeah, the fact that this link does exist is is evidence of that.
There's something going on,
right? And on a purely selfish angle, and maybe other people would agree with this, maybe not. I like the idea of more spin-offs just because right now, and we haven't talked about this yet, Disney Plus's section for Doctor Who is a little box that says Special 1. And I would like it to be a proper tab that says Doctor Who and has, all of the Doctor Who stuff under it that you can find easily. Instead of just being a little like a TV special saying Doctor Who Special 1.
Yeah. Just call it Doctor Who the Star Beast.
I mean, even that, but yeah, I would rather, there's a section, there's the Marvel section, there's the Star Wars section, there's the National Geographic section. I would like there to be a Doctor Who section, that you could then click on and see Doctor Who things. And I imagine part of that is, I mean, yeah, you would think they want to draw Doctor Who fans to Disney Plus instead of them going to Max, but
yeah.
It kind of depends on how Disney thinks about Doctor Who, and if they really think of it as a franchise or just like a series that they are getting.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. I talked about it before, but it actually it shows up on the main banner thing now, but for that first day, it didn't.
Which it did for me, which was weird.
Down.
But I noticed, instead of it was never the far left thing. It was in the middle, after you've opened Disney Plus, and either you scroll to the right for a bit, or you wait for it to naturally cycle the 30 seconds or whatever a few times. It was never the headline, hey, watch this now. It was just kind of part of the crowd.
Yeah. Which almost makes me wonder if they're just holding off on that until the rights for the rest of Modern Who go up, and then they'll finally get around to making a section, or they're just waiting for there to be more than one thing on there. I don't know.
There could be if Doctor Who Unleashed was on there, or the commentary tracks, or literally anything other than just the episode. Even if the next episode trailer was up there. Anyway, I don't want this to become a rant about Disney Plus. So that brings us to television and streaming. Uh, so the first thing I have to talk about is Harley Quinn season 4. And I think that aired late summer or early fall, but I did not have access to Max at the time. I recently restarted my Max subscription because we're going to be doing our Chibnall retrospective at the beginning of 2024, and I wanted to prepare for it. So what do I think of Harley Quinn season 4? Well, season 3 ended in this interesting place of Harley Quinn was going to work with the Bat family, and Poison Ivy was going to work with the Legion of Doom, and they were going to figure out how to make that work, and make sure not to end the relationship over. And how did that work out? Well, the first act, the first third of the season or so is basically entirely on that premise of how to work, how these boundaries work. And honestly, I found those few episodes to be some of the weakest of the entire show. The comedy was less than I expected. It was more in the realm of a CW drama than of Harley Quinn. And I was really finding myself like, oh, is this what the show is now? Is the show starting to die? But around the second act, it really started to pick up more. This was when you started to see Harley and Ivy kind of working together on some problems and things that were relevant to both of them, and also a few ongoing plots were happening. Right, it was a little less episodic. So by the middle of the season, I was really enjoying it again. It was a lot more like the previous seasons, and then the final episode set up potentially a really interesting season 5. Basically, they were looking at a potentially setting up a Gotham City Sirens sort of thing. I don't want to go into too much details about who would be involved, but kind of like how the end of season 3 talked about Harley being like no longer being a villain, but not quite being a hero. They kind of explored that with a little bit more, and it looks like season 5 they're going to have really explore that with multiple characters. So it really looks like a more interesting season 5 than season 4. If you're kind of not sure about this, maybe skip the first 3 episodes or so and jump in at like episode 4. Um, if you're a hardcore fan, you could watch the entire season, but if you started at like episode 4, I don't think you'd really be missing much. Moving on to movies, we've got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So I mentioned last week I'd started watching this. And this one was basically, well, yeah, I mean, there's a Star-Lord kind of plot going on, of course, as I mentioned, with the Christmas special. But the real focus is on Rocket and his origin. So for most of the movie, there's 2 plots going on. One is, it's kind of like, think Highlander. You have the plot of Rocket's origin that kind of starts when he became more than just a raccoon, and ends with him, escaping from the High Evolutionary. Whereas the present day plot, he's mostly incapacitated. The entire goal is to find a way to heal him from an issue that happened early on in the movie. So it's really an odd thing. It's like he's the damsel in distress, but also he's the star of the movie. And then, of course, at the end of the movie, everybody's active, everybody's involved in what's going on. So I know one of the big things people were talking about with this was Adam Warlock. And I could kind of see that. Like, I haven't read a lot of comics with him. But here he's really almost like a super-powered Drax in personality, like Drax from the movies, not from the comics. right? He's just kind of like this buffoon who is just kind of following his orders. He's really strong, but he's just an idiot and, played for comedy.
To be fair, I
That
could
was
see
all.
that being the introduction to him, and then he quickly warms up to what's going on, and then
Got
also
you.
breaks control because Adam Warlock essentially eventually becomes the Marvel equivalent of Superman, is what I recall of him.
Okay. And
So,
yeah, he's
so by the time
definitely
he
not
reaches
there
Earth,
by
he is much more mellow and much more understanding of what's going on around him.
So that might happen in between this movie and whatever he next appears in.
Mm-hmm.
As of
Most
the end
likely.
of this movie, he's just kind of becoming, separating and becoming his own person instead of a lackey. Since I
Yeah,
mentioned
next appearance would be a good development for him, and then finding a solo maybe after that.
right, since I mentioned Drax, I kind of alluded to this a little bit last week. My issue with some of the more recent appearances of the Guardians is that too much emphasis is placed on Drax and Mantis as a comic relief duo. And where like scenes will stall out for 5 minutes so they can do a comedy bit, and that does happen a bit in this movie. But you actually also get some actual growth and emotional scenes. So like there's this whole scene where like Mantis, Drax, and Nebula are like butting heads because Nebula's convinced that they add nothing to the team, and Mantis thinks that like Drax is an idiot that she has to like protect, and but like he's good to have around, but that he's an idiot, and he actually shows that he can solve problems while people are underestimating him. And if kind of things like that, I don't want to just. I mean, I probably already said too much for people trying to go in without spoilers, but so there's a nice payoff to that. Even though I wish that there wasn't kind of the need for the payoff built up. And I guess the last thing to say is that they had already said this was going to be the last episode with this team. So I kind of was expecting a really like dark sort of ending, where like half the team was killed off. And I'm not going to say if that happens or not, but I will say the ending was a lot more positive than I expected going into it. I definitely was prepared for a really dark ending, and that's really not what it was. It was a much more upbeat ending, much more positive. As to who should watch it, I mean, the tone is not all that different from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. If you're a fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, then you'll probably be a fan of this. There's a lot of callbacks, I think, thematically to the first movie. But I still think the first movie was the best of the three. But this is pretty good. Maybe better than number 2.
Alrighty. And so I guess we go on to my little bit here.
Yep.
So very recently in my purchasing things up, I found out that a couple months ago they had actually ended Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer. This is going through Opus Comics, which I've also heard now too that they don't always accurately send out the stuff that people order directly from them, which is why I'm glad I just buy my stuff from eBay. eBay, an actual good comic book store, come to find out. You can actually get almost all these issues between, like, I think it's $8 to $2, depending upon their rarity, etc. And that's with ship, and some of those are with shipping, as some of them will ship out multiple stuff with one shipping cost, so you can save bucks on that too. So when I previously mentioned this comic book, there was only 4 issues out. This ended on 15 issues. At the end of the 4th issue, a child was murdered by the evil magic helmet that is Death Dealer. That's its nickname, at least. Kerr, the guy who's the host for the helmet, had a freak out, and as he was having a freak out, so was the helmet, and they quickly ran through a basic hellway portal to another plane, a hellish plane, to try and save the soul of the baby, essentially, and supposedly stop the reawakening of the goddess that basically constantly dreams and is the reason why their reality exists. At least that's the setup for it. I will say that they make it through. They do have a heck of a pitched battle for quite a while there. Dragons get involved, demons get involved. Eventually ogres and undead armies and whole crazy bunch of stuff just starts happening. Because while Death Dealer's in hell trying to save the baby, the sorceress that he left behind has to like basically blink out and then try and find help of her own. She attempts to get help from several other people, one of which is a very powerful wizard that she sends after Death Dealer himself to get him the hell out of there. And then they also basically find a spot, a particularly well-fortified castle, go in there, try to ask for help. The ruler is a psychotic and was just going to like not be helpful at all after giving them a whole bunch of runaround. To which one of the ladies just went, no, fuck you, and lightning bolted him through the chest and forced his daughter to become the new ruler. So that was a thing. So you don't say no to a sorceress. That's just lesson number 1. They do finally get Death Dealer and Kerr out of the hellscape. They start trying to figure out what the heck the deal is with all this stuff and why they're in particular interested in the baby. Because apparently one believes, at least initially, that it just needed the death of an innocent to open the portal way so that this monolithic demon lord on the other side could keep pushing his armies through. But it seems like there's a little bit more attached to everything going on here. And they do gradually and properly reveal that by the end. And I will not spoil the end, but I will say that it does come to a decent conclusion. Not everyone survives. And they do leave at least a little bit of something hanging behind for a possibility of a sequel. To which I would then also add that I haven't shared this yet. At the back of the book, they advertise the next franchise in this, which they are currently about ready to produce the first issue of. Now that's been several months later. And I'm going to share the image for you guys here in the Discord. They are planning to do a new, and I'm not kidding, 2099 sequel.
Okay.
They're going from medieval sword and sorcery fantasy into cyberpunk. And if I'm to be honest, I don't mind this. This looks all right by me. This could be interesting. So, long and the short of it, that's the basic plot. So, what's all in it? Plenty of monsters getting the shit kicked out of them. Badasses doing badass things the entire way through. There's at least, I believe, 2 or 3 makeout scenes, and they're done tastefully. And a matter of fact, a couple that was having a spat off screen before the start of our story is actually making up for lost time. So that's a thing too in this story. Just a whole lot of really interesting things going on, and it of course also ends in a very big climactic evil versus evil battle, because technically the entity kept within the helmet is an evil entity. It apparently knows who the sleeping goddess is, and even claims that it's not so much that the goddess is sleeping. There's other issues, too. But, of course, it doesn't want to say what all those issues are. That'd be telling. Yeah, so a really good, solid conclusion. They seem to have an interesting idea of where they're going to take the series next, so I'm interested to see where they're going with it. I might keep up with them and see where it goes. And I would also add that I've been so into this that not only do I have all 15 issues, I also have the action figure of the Death Dealer itself. So kudos to Frank Frazetta's family who's keeping the business going, because I believe, I'm not sure if they actually contributed any art to the comics, but I do know the daughter, and in particular the granddaughter, are running the business, and the granddaughter of Frank Frazetta is also an artist in her own right. So they're keeping it in the family, and it's been pretty successful for them so far, it seems, because they have another series of that's based on Frank Frazetta artwork, but not tied to Death Dealer. Death Dealer is the one I know, just from the artwork itself. Apparently, it has chapter books out there too, but I don't think they have anything related to the comic book. And yeah, then now I'm waiting to see what the next one will be like, and we'll see what the issues look like when they come out. So, Death Dealer, you can find it for decent on eBay.
Okay. All right, and that brings us on to our episode summary from Alex.
Yep. Thankfully, I've been downing a lot of water.
I have also been downing a lot of water, which is why I'm going to use the bathroom while you're summarizing.
All right, time clock is ready when you are.
Yep.
All right, starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
Following a last time when RTD was previously the showrunner thing, we open on 14, wandering around London, having landed there safely for a change post-regeneration, and he happens to run into Donna and her child Rose when a rocket crashes into a steel mill somewhere else in London, with Donna having missed it as usual. 14, then runs into Sean, Donna's husband, and gets a lift to the crash site, or at least close enough, where UNIT are already investigating things. Meanwhile, Rose and a boy who lives nearby, I forget his name, find an escape pod.
I don't recall either.
With Rose later finding its occupant hiding behind the trash, the Meep, who asks for help from monsters trying to catch the Meep. Back at the crash site, it turns out that the rocket didn't actually crash, but specifically landed there. The Doctor having a brief chat with Shirley Ann Bingham, a scientific advisor for UNIT, in which he points out that the rocket uses a dagger drive and muses over why he got his old face back, and reiterates for newbies that if Donna remembers him, she'll die. The Doctor leaves the crash site and UNIT investigate the rocket, only for a group of soldiers investigating it to be mind-controlled by something that comes out of the rocket, which we later find out what it is, and immediately go to find the Meep. Everything converges on the Noble Temple household as Donna discovers Rose hiding the Meep in the shed out back, only for the Doctor to show up, Sean to come home, and then the mind-controlled UNIT soldiers and Wrath warriors, the bug-like aliens that are coming after the Meep as well, start firing on each other, with the Doctor using his the sonic screwdriver, to allow them to get away safely and drive off. Realizing something is slightly off, the Doctor summons 2 Wrath warriors into an underground car park and invokes a Shadow Proclamation for a hearing, in which we get the twist that the Meep's race, due to very specific set of circumstances, were all mutated to become bloodthirsty tyrants bent on universal conquest. In response to this, the Meep drops the act and kills the Wrath warriors, taking the Doctor, Donna, and her family hostage, with it being revealed that the dagger drive the Meep's now repaired ship uses will destroy a 5-mile radius in London to fuel its takeoff. As the Doctor and Donna cut off from each other in the rocket later on, after escaping and managing to try to get the family to safety, and have gone up into the rocket to try and stop the rocket from taking off, Donna eventually consents to letting the Doctor ultimately unlock her memories to bring back the Doctor Donna, even though she'll know she'll die as a result, or is made clear that she will die as a result, in time to reverse a dagger drive and undo all the damage to London. After a fake-out death, it's revealed that the Metacrisis passed down to Rose, which allowed Donna to survive it because it was now split between 2 people. With her and Rose realizing that they could collectively just let it go and release the energy out of them after the Meep is taken into custody, and also cryptically mentioning the boss, whoever that will be. We then end on the Doctor and Donna intending to visit Wilf in the TARDIS, only for Donna to spill coffee on the TARDIS console, making it go absolutely apeshit and sending them off into the next special while Blue Yonder. The end.
All right, 4 minutes, 9 seconds.
That is probably the longest summary I've done in a while. Because I was realizing there's some stuff I can skim over because it's more character stuff than plot driven. But other stuff I'm like, no, I kind of need to add this for context.
Yeah, and the character stuff ended up being, at least a lot of character stuff ended up being very important to the plot by the end of the episode.
Yeah, so moving on from that, I guess, would we lump in the new screwdriver with the TARDIS?
So
yes, we would.
We technically talked about the screwdriver, but we didn't talk about its function as a magic wand because we looked at the design of the screwdriver.
I think we've gone over the look of it, but we've not gone over its new freaking abilities.
About its ability to summon a tablet screen or to create bulletproof glass out of thin air.
Yeah, we've always joked that it's like a magic wand. It's officially a goddamn magic wand now.
Yeah.
Like, we joked about it being a magic wand from the point when it could, like, Wingardium Leviosa and, like, undo mind control and shit. And now
mend things at random due to vibration because Sonic, but this is a whole new level of ridiculous.
Conjuring things out of thin air.
Right. I mean,
I will literally watching him draw a screen in the air and start poking it, and I'm like, are you effing kidding me?
Yeah, I will say,
where did that barrier come from?
Yeah.
It came from the screwdriver.
Yeah. Like, the one thing that, like, as much as I don't agree with it being used that way, the one thing I'll give them that was brought up in a review I watched was that it's not just, like, instant. So it's not like a get out of jail free, I can do this in an instant thing.
Yeah, the only way he got away with making the force field walls is because they were busy with each other. Yeah, I'll grant you that.
That's the one thing they get. That's the one thing they get is that it's not an instantaneous thing.
I still disagree it should be used for that at all because that is high level bullshittery.
They even added to the bullshittery of the deadlock seal, which the deadlock seal idea made sense, and it was like, this wall is so tightly sealed that the Sonic can't do anything about it. Like, okay, I get that, even if it's kind of techno gibberish, but they're like, this wall full of electronics is deadlock sealed because he hit a button and that made it immune to Sonics. I understand the plot needed it to be that way, and I'll talk about that scene a lot more later.
That's some more bullshittery, yeah.
But,
that's not how technology works.
Like that. We're getting to the point where it's about as bad as when they went from gold dust clogs up a Cyberman's ventilators to, what if I take a gold coin and stab the Cyberman with it? Remember that?
Yeah.
Or a gold star it was,
Right, yeah.
For mathematical excellence.
A gold medallion.
Yeah. I mean, at least when they used, like, a gold-plated arrow that was, like, had some force behind it.
Yeah.
But, like, it still had nothing to...
still got on the respirator.
It still had nothing to do with why gold was the weak... Like, anything gold that's not gold dust has nothing to do with the actual gold weakness.
Right. But yeah, like, I mean, it just was so, like, I either said it in private to Bill. I think I probably said it in the spoilers channel that we have. I was like, wow, it used to be considered a magic wand. And that's the weird thing is, like, someone even brought up in the review that I was watching, that was like, well, it could have been worse with the magic wandness of it.
Could it have?
That well, again, if it had been like instantaneous, that would have felt even worse.
Well, speaking of
kind of a thing.
instantaneous,
It's bad enough it's doing it at all.
The Ninth Doctor spent half an episode, or like at least more than 10 minutes, trying to resonate concrete.
Right.
And meanwhile, the 14th Doctor is just like, I'm going to point it at this wall, and the wall is going to fall apart.
Yeah. But like,
I bet it even does wood now.
It came up that like, it's also like, which it didn't even occur to me in the moment, that like, yeah, with Jodie, it was scaled way back. It was basically just scanning, and that's it. Like, scanning, opening doors, that was about it. Like, it was pared way back down from some of the silly shit that it had done with Doctors previous.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was just, it scans, it unlocks things, that's it. And now we're going from that to waving his magic wand and creating constructs.
On one hand, I guess it's from a TV perspective, it's a little better to have a wand that can create a magic tablet screen than to have, I mean, I'm calling it a wand, whatever.
Yeah.
Compared to in the Moffat era, all of that would happen inside Matt Smith's head or Peter Capaldi's head. And we were just expected to understand, yes, by waving his wand, he now has a psychic interface that is telling him literally everything about the environment.
Well, to be fair, they've been doing that since the start of New Who.
Right.
They've been doing that since the start of New Who. They just look at the little tippy thing and just go, oh, okay.
Yeah. Right. The funny thing for me is that the easy out, at least for the tablet screen thing, would have just been, there's a light on the end. Have something emit out of that.
Right.
And it comes up as a screen like a fucking projector. That would work. I'd buy that.
Another option would have been to go the Sherlock route, where it's very clear that we're seeing the character's thoughts, but that it's not a physical thing. Like, they did that really well in Sherlock. They could have imitated that if they wanted to.
Also, I will admit, I'm also kind of disappointed that we don't see how he got the Sonic. He just has a new one.
Yeah, he just has
instead of starting with Jodie's and then moving over to it. It's like, no, you've just got a new one. And like, as far as it looks go, it really kind of looks like a slightly less bulky Matt Smith, which I'll take that rather than it just being literally the one Tennant had prior again. That would have been like, okay, it's enough that we already have all of these callbacks. We don't need him to have literally the same screwdriver.
Also, by the way, can I just say that every time we call him the 14th now, my brain, now that I've watched an episode of Mystery Science Theater, by the way, watched Mystery Science Theater all week because of Tubi now. There's an episode called The Voyages of Sinbad or whatever. It's not Sinbad. It's actually a Finnish hero that does do sailing.
Okay.
But the constant joke in the episode is, that's not Sinbad. So every time we say 14th, I'm just like, that's not 14.
Yeah. So sort of like how there's all those Django sequels that are technically not Django sequels. Like how Django Unchained is an unofficial, but not really a sequel kind of thing. Yeah, I guess we've probably given all we can for that. So I guess just moving on to the TARDIS interior.
So what do we think of the TARDIS interior? Who wants to go
I feel like I like it better actually seeing the full scope of it rather than the images we'd seen previously.
I have
and
to
not that
agree
it looks
because as soon as I just seen all these lights on, I'm just like, this feels like a cell phone, and I hate it. And then it actually starts doing things on the walls, and I'm like, oh no, that's way better. Okay.
I didn't think we had seen images before this.
Technically, there had been leaked ones, and that turned out to be right.
Oh, okay.
Effectively, there had been leaked photos of it where we were like, oh, there's all these ramps and stuff, so maybe there's going to be a companion who needs a mobility aid, so the TARDIS is accommodating something. And it was very
that was
when we
like
got
the
to
BBC
that
was like publicizing that fact, and I was like, for one, it's 2023. That really shouldn't be. Oh wow, we're living up to the 20th century. Somebody with mobility difficulties can access our sets.
Right.
But it kind of seems like they're heavily implying Shirley or someone is going to be aboard the TARDIS.
Yeah, again, I think someone who was cast for either series 14 or 15 or possibly a special or something was like a little person who seemed to mostly use a mobility aid, probably just to get around large sets or this, that, whatever. So maybe that could also play into it. Don't know. But also something that didn't click until someone pointed it out was, oh, this is also a bigger TARDIS set than normal.
Way bigger, yeah.
So it's bigger, but at the same time, it's more like it feels like all the stuff they told us was just off screen is actually there. Because it's like all these corridors and stuff, it's like they told us it was always there.
Yeah.
But we never saw them. This time we
it was
actually
usually very
see
cramped.
them, and I really like that part.
I will say I do agree with the review I watched that ultimately, and I hope that it's a nitpick now. Hopefully it won't be an issue later, but it does look a bit empty.
Like I said, that's also kind of part of my too clean. It's like,
I saw that, and I'm not sure I agree. Like I feel it just feels clean, and partially it's because it's the fact it's brand new, so we want it to look clean.
Right.
But it looks good the way it is to me, and in that respect, I saw one person oh, well, hopefully they fill it up with keepsakes from the 15th Doctor's adventures, and I'm just like, why does it need to just be clutter?
Well, yeah, I don't want it to necessarily be filled with a ton of random shit, but just feel like a lived-in space. So now we're seeing it as clearly this is the first time Tennant's seen it, which honestly felt a bit weird.
On that note, Tennant was the one who wanted to do the running around scene, but then they did 8 takes because it's a single camera show, and he may have been regretting it by the 8th take.
Yeah, probably.
I could not have I could at 25 at 20. I probably could not have run around that set 8 times the way he did. And he's fucking
need a breather in
in his 50s.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting kind of modern but also retro at the same time, in that it's stark white with we've got lights instead of roundels now.
Apparently the roundels are all individually programmable. So some people are calling it the Rave TARDIS. Which does make it really easy if they want to just be like, okay, it's going to look a little different from now on. Maybe it's going to be green when Ncuti Gatwa takes it over or something. Really easy to do.
Yeah. Plus now it'll if there's any kind of if there's ever some sort of emergency in the TARDIS, the lights will just all flash red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, I first seen all this white and empty clean space. I'm like, ugh, I don't know. That feels like sitting in an empty apartment. But then as you've seen all the lights change with different things going on, I'm like, oh, that's way better. Yes.
My one complaint about the design, and this has been consistent throughout Modern Who is like a lot of this. It's a callback to the classic TARDIS. The classic TARDIS did not have a grid structure. It had a honeycomb structure where, like, the
Yeah.
odd number ones would be slightly staggered compared to the even numbered ones, and they have not yet, despite all the attempts to replicate it, they have not yet replicated that aspect of the design.
Yeah. That is like the one thing that is usually consistent. Even with like as much as people didn't like Jodie's, it still had, from what I can recall, a bit of a honeycomb thing going on the sides. So yeah, it is
I
kind of
specifically
weird
mean
that...
of all the white TARDISes they've done since
Right, yeah,
2005, none of the white TARDISes have had the honeycomb thing. They've always been in a grid, and I'm just like, why? Like it's like you're trying to call back to it, but you're not calling back to it. Which I imagine it's like slightly more expensive to do the honeycomb properly than to just do a grid, but you're putting all
Most
the money into
likely,
the
yeah.
set already, so
Right, like they've got, like, before you could argue that they had the excuse of they would just had BBC money, but now they have Disney money. So, and I guess by virtue of like Bad Wolf being a subsidiary of Sony, they've got Sony money technically. So, you know, you've got more money to work with to make this bigger set, and you couldn't do honeycomb lights. That is a bit odd. Especially because
being mindful
arguably
of
the way the lights light up could potentially even be more interesting with a honeycomb setup.
yeah.
But
Being mindful of time, any last comments on the TARDIS before we move on to our next topic?
I think that's it.
All right. So I know Alex wanted to discuss this first. I figure we'll kind of each go around once and talk about kind of the social issues aspects of the episode and what what they did right and what they did poorly. So I know Alex, you've been preparing for this.
And
So
I wanted to get this out of the way now because originally I was like, yous were gonna have to like rein me way in if I left this to the review portion. So then I just figured, you know what, we'll get it out of the way before
just try not
we
to spend
start.
15 minutes on it.
Right, true. But yeah, like that dead naming shit. No, Russell. I don't care what kind of justification you think you have for that. I didn't want that. I didn't need that. I know plenty of people who were not as angry about me, and I've calmed down about it now because it's been a couple of days. But I was ready to slap Russell for that because that did not need to be there as far as I'm concerned. Like, yes, Yasmin Finney was okay with it. Apparently it was a little triggering for her, but otherwise she's said that she was okay with it being there.
On the
But like,
same note, it does seem that there have been a lot of trans people who've basically said, yes, it's important that people are aware of this experience.
like the trans woman on the official Doctor Who podcast, her stance was basically like, yeah, that's a reality we face, and etc. And you know what? It's Doctor Who though. This is the modern setting. I saw some people try to bring up racism that the POC companions had suffered encountered in other stories prior to this, as like, oh well, they've done that, so what's the problem with this? And one, don't equate those. That is a very different experience. But you know, that all happens in past stories, seems to be the thing that people that bring that up forget. Oddly, I've also only seen white people bring that up, which is a bit thing. There might have been some people of color who brought it up. And it would seem more justified from them than my fellow white people bringing it up. But like, whatever racism Martha encountered was always in the past. Ryan got punched in the face, but that was in Rosa. And they discuss racism. Yaz and Ryan discuss racism that they encountered in modern day, but do we see it? No.
Yeah, when
Because
Bill experienced racism, it was also in the past.
right. It was always in a past setting to be kind of a look where we are now. And, you know, racism was obviously still a thing.
Which is kind
but
of
it's like,
also a
look how
myth,
far
but,
we've
yeah.
come. Yeah. And, like, that didn't happen. Like, the closest we get is the implication, and it's more of an implication than anything, that when Rose buggered off and then came back 6 months later instead of when she originally left, Mickey was very pissed off because he was hounded constantly by the cops and all the other white people around because his white girlfriends went missing. And while they don't spell it out, and also that was really weird because like Russell wrote that and that was written to make Mickey look like the bad guy. So that's fucking weird. But, you know, I didn't need the dead naming, mainly. If the bullying had otherwise been there, but not the dead naming, I would have had no complaints about that. Because the only reason that scene exists is to get across the point that Donna is a supportive mother of her trans child. But we literally have a scene later with Sylvia that gets that across way better.
I do know.
And it's like,
for those who know, our previous temporary co-host Miles talked about this on his blog. That one point of that scene seems to be just highlighting the difference in temperament or the difference in reaction between Donna and Rose, where Rose is just over it. She's like, let it go. Like, she might, not that she doesn't care, but she's so used to it.
yeah.
And Donna is just like, I will, the I will descend scene.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know Donna, seeing as how she hasn't been part of the show in 15 years, that may have been part of why the scene was written.
Yeah. Like, effectively, RTD said in Unleashed, because I managed to watch the YouTube upload of it before it got taken down, RTD's basically like, and even in the podcast, he also brings it up on the official podcast, that it's effectively, well, it's a reality trans people face, so I included it. And I'm like, you didn't need to, though. Like, again, you don't have to make it seem like everything's all sunshine and rainbows. Like, did Jack ever cop shit for being bisexual? No. Did Bill cop any shit for being gay? No. So why did we suddenly have to do... Like, it feels like overcorrecting is what it felt like. It felt well-intentioned, but muddled. Execution is like the thing that I keep coming back to. It's well-intentioned. It's coming from a good place, but the execution needed work.
And I've been saying...
Which is ironically the exact same thing that people were saying about Chibnall's run the whole way through. So, you know...
building off the muddled execution thing, what I've been saying the whole time is, okay, if you felt you needed to include it, I can kind of get it. Like, a lot of trans people are coming out in favor of the scene. I'm like, okay, if you really felt that scene needed to be included in Rose's run, I get it. I do not think it should have been the way we found out she was trans.
Right.
I think that conversation should have started a different way.
Yeah. That could have been left to Sylvia stumbling over pronouns.
Because shitty things and discrimination is part of trans people's experience, but it is not the only part of the experience.
Right. I will additionally say the thing that really set me off the day of was the realization, great, Russell, you know what you've done? You've suddenly given transphobes a name to call Rose that isn't Rose. Great. good on you,
Right.
mate.
Yes.
What a
yes.
great idea. You fucking idiot. Like, what are you doing? Like, that's what set me off, and that's what's getting me angry right now, is like, you just gave them fuel. You gave them ammunition. The same guy who was like, I don't want Tenet regenerating into Jodie's clothes because that'll set off the transphobes. And then you do that.
It does
Like,
seem...
what are you doing?
Apparently, he did really want that name to be out there because apparently that name means doctor. And he wanted to get that Easter egg out there. But again, not the best.
Yeah.
Honestly, we could have gone without knowing what that name even was.
Yeah, I did not want to know what Rose's dead name was. Like, I didn't need to know. It serves no purpose. Like, again, you could have had those kids riding by on bikes and giving Rose shit without dead naming her.
Just like we
and
don't
it
need
still
to know
would have worked.
Birth name.
Like, you know, it's goddamn ridiculous. For me, like, again, this is coming from my perspective as a non-binary person. I'm not speaking for anyone else. People can like it, people can dislike it, but not as intensely as me. But personally, I wanted to slap RTD upside the face.
And I should also point, any responses I had was not necessarily me disagreeing, just adding in extra perspective. If depending, I'm not sure which way it came across, but being clear.
Yeah. Again, that's why I'm emphasizing it's just my opinion for the stuff I'm saying.
Can I also state on a similar note, maybe it's just me or maybe it's just the way it was phrased or whatever, did they suddenly seem like super condescending once or twice, especially at the end there about the Doctor being a man again?
That scene, and it's 13th Doctor fans are the ones most annoyed by that, because they were just like, the 13th Doctor would not have, like, never let anything go. Like that they're like, her being a woman, being a woman does not, being a man versus a woman does not give you emotional intelligence.
Yeah,
like that's a should be a dead stereotype.
I believe me, I know about having to control one's emotions around certain people.
Not all men are Homer Simpson.
Yeah. It felt very like that very kind of fake late 90s girl power crap.
You used the word earlier, overcorrecting.
Yeah.
It just I'm hearing all this, and I'm probably going to go into that scene again later for some other reasons, but all of a sudden they're just like blasting him for being a man now, and you totally can't do this, and then they do something that I'll bring up later, breaks a lot of continuity. I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
I really think RTD, and I don't know what the industry looks like in England. I don't even know what the industry looks like in LA, but I think he should have found a trans woman or a non-binary woman to co-write this episode with.
It does feel that way. It does feel like someone's lacking a bit of finesse. And I don't know why, because usually Russell was really good at this stuff.
Yeah, and that was a big criticism of Moffat, where like RTD was the insider, right? He's part of the queer community. He could like hint at things and subtly nod them, and then
he didn't have to break your skull over it.
And then
whereas
Moffat
everyone
had to
from
come
Moffat
in with
afterwards.
Moffat had to come in with a sledgehammer. Did you know this character's gay and it's okay?
and then Chibnall after him came in with the freaking jackhammer. It's like, come on, guys.
Like, by comparison, this feels like Russell coming back with like, oh, I can one-up you on that, and came in with a bloody wrecking ball. And again, I would like to point out, by the way, and I brought this up to Bill, this is the same person who was like, I will not portray disabled people as villains because that's not a reality. There aren't shitty disabled people. They're all bright, rainbow happy. Ta-da. And it's like,
I don't think he ever.
People of you. Well, like, you know,
I don't
point
think
being,
he went that far.
That's
But
how people interpret that. Was
my
one of the
point-
bad faith interpretations.
and that's like that's me getting just angry. But it's also just like his thing is okay. So I have to coddle effectively, whether he means to or not. It can come off as like, oh, I have to treat disabled people this very specific way. I am not going. When again, he's got positive reputation. There's a wheelchair user in this story who is very entertaining and well written.
She was at least
but
amusing.
Then I have to, and then I have to turn her. Then he feels like he needs to turn around and dead name the trans person. So it's like, what are we doing? This feels very mixed messages.
Yeah.
Like,
Russell seems very suddenly confused that he's in the limelight again. It's like, Russell, what are we doing? Oh, Russell's just ripping off his shirt. He's ripping off his pants, and he's run out the TARDIS doors. Oh, lordy, boys, here we go.
Yeah, like it felt like he must have at least had someone helping him with the disability rep in this episode, because it didn't feel like they were ever making light of Shirley being in a wheelchair.
There's like maybe one very brief instance. She's like, "Just go on, get your work done. I'll monitor from here."
Yeah. And even then, that was more like, oops, sorry, the stairs.
And that was also
like,
set up for her being the only one who's not hypnotized.
Yeah.
That was set up for her to basically be the only competent unit personnel in this room.
Yeah, so it was weird that he got that. I mean, again, I'm not disabled, so I can't. This is just me. He got that right, but he stumbled over the trans stuff.
I've also seen a lot of people pissed that they basically took away Davros with what a lot of disabled people thought was like unnecessary coddling. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people that are kind of pissed with that too.
And like I said last week, some of that was just bad faith readings, and some of it was legit disagreement.
Like, and like I'm not even saying like they even saw his comments about like they just saw the special and went, "What? What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah, like
there was basically the reaction I was getting.
like with this. There was a lot of mixed reactions from the communities that it directly impacts. Like, I saw disabled people saying, what the fuck, this feels infantilizing. And there was also disabled people who were like, I'm absolutely in support of this decision. The same way, I don't like the dead naming in this, but there are plenty of trans people, non-binary people, etc., that were fine with it, or just
I'm fine with them like developing Davros before Davros became the angry, semi-crippled scientist that we know him. But to claim that that's going to be the only version of Davros from here on out, undisputable facts of the show's history says otherwise. That's his future right over there.
So we've mentioned two of the major issues, and we're already perilously close to 2 hours, so I'll be brief on my comment here, and that's they kind of came off as the fact and this is part of the issue of the character being trans / being non-binary as being such a major plot of the episode, is they kind of came off as basically saying Rose is non-binary because she's part alien. And that's one of the things where
that could be something that could be almost taken from that too. Yeah, I kind of was like,
that was not executed very well. It's like the fact that, and I mean, it kind of ties into the whole trope of like only one parent really contributing to a given kid, like that Sean is ignored, and they're like, oh yes, Rose is non-binary because she's half Donna and half the Doctor, and there's I don't know if that's actually what Russell was trying to say, but it definitely came up. Like some of the lines seemed to
came
be
off
saying
in an awkward
that,
manner
and,
like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that scene was awkwardly scripted.
Like non-binary equals alien is as probably worse than autistic equals alien, and I mean Doctor Who is guilty of both. So yeah, that's another aspect where yes, RTD is queer, but maybe there should have been more trans hands on the script.
Yeah, and it also
there should have been clearer heads for sure.
Yeah, I know I talked to Bill about it as well, but suddenly that also brings into question: did she pick the name Rose because of the meta crisis? And
I think
therefore,
that
she
seems to be the
did not.
implication.
Yeah, so therefore, she arguably didn't have full agency in choosing her own name. So it's like, I mean, it's on muddy ground, but it's like
she had as much agency as Donna had in giving away her lottery ticket money.
right.
So, and she seems pretty pissed about that. So,
yeah,
I think she kind of was pissed because everyone keeps bringing it up. To be fair.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, then there was like it was kind of weird because she was both trans and a trans allegory, because there was that whole like once the meta crisis was gone, now she could finally live as herself, and that's why like we were talking about that. I was sitting there, I was like, okay, is she just coming out as non-binary, or has she always been out as non-binary? And it's like, I think the point is that she's always been out as non-binary, which, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's not on her Twitter account, but I'm pretty sure Yasmin Finney is she, they, which would make sense with how Rose is portrayed as well. But, like, then that whole, like, now I can live as myself, obvious trans allegory, kind of, you know, it makes it feel like they're related, even though there's just transness and trans allegory coexisting in the same episode. It's kind of messy.
Yeah.
Also, just to point out how different the times are now, I never would have thought that we would have a Doctor Who companion whose Twitter profile is a nude photo of themselves, censored, of course. But like in the 70s, that shit would not have flown. In the 80s, there would have been campaigns, even ignoring her being trans. There would have been campaigns against just that, or like they would have, you know, the Doctor and companions would have been against it. Although the Doctor, I think, always followed stricter rules than the companions, considering some of the official publicity shots we got of companions. But still,
yeah. I mean,
I saw that on her Twitter because I was looking to see if her pronouns were on Twitter. And I was just like, I was not expecting to see a topless photo as her avatar.
Just like, oh, that's a thing. Hi.
Which, I mean, that's a very trans thing to do. So, like, it's on brand, but it's unexpected for Doctor Who.
Yeah, like, this is one of those things where I could go on about it for days, but we should probably...
We definitely should
move
on. Yeah, I think we've
do
covered
we have all of the relevant things out of our system in time for the regular review?
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right. So what did we like about the episode, starting with Matt?
All right. Thing I liked about the episode. As someone who read the comic book like 20-some years ago, they did the Meep very well. Obviously, the Meep is no longer like this weird bluish thing, but I feel like updating it at least a little bit to fit the show a bit better was a good choice. And I was waiting for that coin flip, and when it hit, I'm like, oh, there it is.
That's different levels of fandom. David Tennant read the comic when it first came out, and then still remembered the plot up to this day. Matt read it 20 years ago, and I read it this weekend.
Yeah, back when I was in Madison and collecting comic books a little more frequently than I do now, I was starting to collect Doctor Who a little bit, and I'm like, oh, we're getting that one edited? Oh, okay, I was fine with that one. Yeah, let's go.
So you're just saying the adaptation is what you like?
Yeah, the adaptation, but in particular when focused on the Meep, which was the main thing that carried over. Yeah, that was like, 10 out of 10.
See, that's the problem with the whole I don't use pronouns, because then now the way to phrase a sentence is the Meep's self, which is just a fucked up way to make a sentence. So for the sake of my own sanity, I will be using they them pronouns for the meep, and I will probably fuck up because I fuck up too often.
um
All right, so we're on to Alex.
I think I'm just gonna go with Sean.
Okay.
Because it's so funny to me that the whole time, like, I feel like this is the most, like, this is a fairly unique portrayal for a partner of a companion in Doctor Who, because he's
It's
taking everything
unique
in
and not
stride.
unique. Yeah,
Yeah, like
it's
he's taking everything in stride rather than he's not Rory being befuddled and like
mhm.
stressing out, and he's not like Mickey at all,
he,
and I
he's
don't
very much
remember
like
enough
he's
about
very much like I
Danny
see
Pink.
them. He's like I see the meep, but I'm not going to comment on it unless my wife
Yeah.
wants me to. And it's like that's such a companion spouse way to be, even if we haven't actually gotten that portrayal yet.
Yeah. He's very much just like, oh, this is happening. Okay.
You gotta admit there's probably been a bit of chaos in that family for like the last 10,
Mm.
15 years. So he's just gotta be looking at this and going, well, here's the next stage of it. Hi, food, anybody? What smells so good?
It's
Yeah.
on one hand, it's clear he doesn't know who the Doctor is, but he's
Mm.
probably picked up on all the shit Sylvia tries to hide from Donna, like
Yeah.
on Sylvia's like this isn't realness over the years. Like
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
it's very clear that Sylvia has spent a lot of mental energy on protecting Donna from remembering the Doctor,
Yeah.
which is a segue to mine. But I wanted, if you have anything left to say, I'd let you finish first.
Um, I guess because it probably won't come in scenes, there's also just the additional thing of he's probably the first um partner who has not been worried about the relationship between the Doctor and the companion that they're the partner of.
Oh,
Because there's
yeah.
that bit at the end where it's just like,
See,
Yeah,
I
not
can tell
worried.
you two aren't
see,
romantically
I
entangled.
I
So.
figured that was funny because remember, the Doctor was like the one man Donna was never sexually attracted to.
Right.
And it's like he wasn't around at that time, but
Yeah.
it's like he knows.
Yeah, he can just tell from their dynamic, there's nothing going on. It's good.
Like she has a type and you're not it.
Mm-hmm. You're just skinny guy. You're good fun, but you ain't that kind of fun.
But for me, I'm going to say Sylvia because she's such a better she's such a better character than she was in series 4, and it's
The 15
Yeah.
years have done a number on her.
yeah, she's not what you would say a 4D fleshed out character, but like her character used to be nags at her father and her daughter. That's
Right.
it. That was the end of her character.
Right.
It was like she was the character you hated because she was going to insult Donna and nag at Wilf every chance she got, to the point where even the Doctor snapped at her and is like, why don't you actually show her that you care about her? And it seems she took that to heart because she's been very much, it's very clear,
It's very clear she's been very protective.
yeah, it's very clear to the audience and to Donna that she cares about Donna. She cares about Rose. It's obviously she's been stressed out about like worrying about that Donna's going to see like a UFO and it's going to make her think of the Doctor. Like she's been carrying this burden basically by herself because she lives with Donna, or she does not live with Donna. She visits Donna a lot, it seems. Wilf kind of can't because of his advanced age. So she's really taking on the burden of the meta crisis herself. But like, even though like she's not the deepest character, the fact that she's changed so much, yet the parts that you want to see, her personality is still there. It's just she's a much better person and a much better character now.
Yeah, definitely like 15 years worth of off-screen development
Yeah,
based
and it's
on
not like she
how.
came in and she's a brand new character. You can
Yeah.
still tell it's her, but she's a character
Especially
you
for that
actually would
Doctor
not
smack.
mind being around.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. It's a shame I couldn't get well, it's the angle it was at. You couldn't really get like a good photo of it, but that was that and the scene
Here we
of
go
her
again.
like the scene of her you storming down the hall like that's gotten a lot of attention.
Mm.
All right, on to what we disliked about the episode. Starting with Matt.
Dislike about the episode. Just a general thing. I'm trying to think. General thing. Actually, they did pretty good with that. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, it's coming back up again. The flippin' overpowered sonic screwdriver.
Okay.
It's still just like what?
So the magic wand is
The magic wand. The magic wand is such a deal breaker. I mean, I can even give them the whole maybe it'll make some sort of image screen kind of thing, because that would definitely make it more visually interesting for people watching him do his thing. But the whole literally making force field walls out of it. Come on.
Yeah.
I don't even care that it takes a while to make. It's just so
It was so unnecessary because like they could have put a piece of furniture and it would have served the same purpose.
Yes, they could put a piece of furniture. They could have taken the door off the hinges with the Sonic and quickly used it as a shield. There's so many better ways they could have done it. Why? Just why?
Yeah.
Uh-uh.
Yeah. As far as mine goes, I feel like I had something different. But the one thing I was going to bring up, I actually might just save for scenes. Sorry, and we got all the other stuff out of our system already. So overall, you know what? I'm actually gonna go with, and this you could argue this is technically a scene, but it was an element that we didn't talk about, and that's the new intro.
Oh, you didn't
Maybe
like the new intro?
The opening sequence?
Maybe it'll grow on me. But the title sequence felt a bit off to me.
Okay.
And maybe that's just because I liked maybe it's just because I liked how much of a like modernized throwback the Jodie opening was. It was very in the vein of like the earliest openings of the show. That I would think, okay, so it's the 60th, so maybe we'll get a 70s time tunnel or something. Like
actually,
that, but updated.
Okay, whereas this is a lot more like late Moffat era.
Yeah,
this
is very...
I will agree with you on one point that I would have liked at least some sort of tunnel sequence at some point in the middle of it to at least show a Doctor face fade in and then fade out. But the rest of it I was otherwise fine with. I just wish we would have had a Doctor face like we are supposed to, which we got, which with few exceptions we usually get.
You know, I will also, to that end, I was also kind of disappointed that we didn't wait to have a new title sequence for Ncuti and exclusively use updated old ones from like the 60s, 70s, 80s for these to tie into you know the 60th
Actually,
anniversary.
that would have been better
like
for the specials, yeah.
Like how the 50th just straight up uses the Hartnell intro. Like, to be fair, that was a one-off, so they didn't have to do it multiple times. But, you know, it was a nice nod to open it with the Hartnell one. Even if they didn't, like, if they've, like, they remade it and, like, updated it to look a bit better, but was still a thing. That would have been nice. and they could have taken advantage of that, but they didn't. But whatever. And like
I
again,
kind of think that probably maybe even Christmas we'll get another new opening.
I'm willing to bet when we get to the regular series, we'll get at least a slightly different opening. I'm willing to wager.
Yeah, I mean the money. It looks
some
like
retro, some nice
this.
retro styled ones for the specials will be nice though.
Yeah, like it just felt, and like honestly, with how much money it looks like they must have put into this one, I would actually be shocked if this is only for the specials. Like
I said, maybe they have some additional stuff for the regular series or something.
Right. Like maybe it'll be tweaked a little, like how like from Eccleston to Tenet there was really no change, but then the like slight changes kind of happened, and then more pronounced changes happened when we went into Moffat. But yeah, maybe it will. And again, maybe it'll grow on me. I don't hate it, but it's just like the intro didn't feel very 60th anniversary. It felt very, we have a budget and we're going to use it.
The entire budget on screen.
Okay, anything else with that?
That's it.
Okay, so at first I thought this was a scene, but then I realized it kind of extends to multiple scenes. And it's going to be, well, first off, everyone here has seen Galaxy Quest, right?
I've seen tidbits. I've not seen the whole thing.
Yeah.
You haven't seen the whole movie?
No.
Not
in a long time, but I have seen it.
Okay. Do you know what I'm talking about when I see the scene of, when I say the scene where they say this episode, or when they're talking about the layout of like the engineering room or whatever, and they're like, this episode was badly written.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's how I feel about the Meep's entire ship. Whoever designed that ship designed it was entirely designed for plot purposes.
Yes.
Why does an outer space ship have an ejector seat out the nose of it with a parachute that is not an escape pod? Why is there a plexiglass panel that drops in the middle of the engine room?
Unless they wanted to cause people to have issues to stop you.
Why is the engine room so complicated that they flick so many switches just to turn the engine off? Like,
yeah,
I could go on and on. Why is there a switch to apparently burn antimatter? Like, I think that goes more on to just the technobabble gibberish that doesn't mean anything. But like, why are you frying positrons? Like, that concerns me. What the fuck are you doing?
What the hell is this shit? Who's the clown that wrote the ship into existence?
To that end as well, they also try to misdirect by having like these big red things on it to make you think, oh, maybe this is the Wrath Warriors ship. But then when it's not, why are they there? What purpose do they serve other than making it look like it's
the Wrath Warriors? I'm not sure.
Maybe. Well, actually, no, because like the cockpit is so tiny and right up the top that it's clearly a Meep kind ship. So like, what's with the red things then? Like, what do they do? What are they for?
And also,
they're there to make us ask questions.
If everybody who went inside the ship immediately got brainwashed by the Meep, why does UNIT have a control panel for the ship on the outside?
And who turned on the mind control options on that panel? Somebody flipped the wrong switch somewhere and did a big dumb. This is the kind of same level of big dumb as walking into a 40K crypt and expecting not to wake up the Necros.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I could see like the Meep just having like the air of his ship causes mind control, and honestly, that's almost that's kind of a better explanation than you get in the comic, because they're just like, oh yeah, he has matter that can mind control people, but you never see him use it. So here you actually see it, but like if everybody who went in that door got mind controlled, then they shouldn't have brought anything out to be able to create that control panel.
Whoops.
What are you whoopsing?
Just the having that control panel like at all. It makes.
Oh, okay.
It's actually to
I
quote
thought
Jurassic
you meant like
Park.
something went wrong.
No, to quote Jurassic Park, that just raises too many questions.
That's Batman.
No, that's Jurassic Park. That's Malcolm. When they're talking about the dinosaurs and how they control them, etc., etc., just raises too many questions. Actually, it's both. Yeah, now I think about it, there was a
Jurassic
similar.
Park had your scientists were too busy wondering if they could to think about if they should. I've only ever seen it just raises too many questions from Bruce Wayne.
I think maybe the should more than the should part is a little more popular, but I could have sworn there was also a line from that exact same dialogue. But
anyway. Favorite scenes. What is your favorite scene?
Well, I guess like I was mentioning, well, no, I want to go for something different. Actually, yeah, I was commenting earlier when we saw stills like months and months ago that it looked like the bad guys were all kind of common writers. Thank goodness they're not 100% like completely common writers. And matter of fact, I liked the extra effects of them flying around. I'm like, oh, thank goodness.
Okay.
Like these guys look like they're properly here to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a little more equipped than you would initially think by just looking at them.
Right.
Yeah. And for what I saw from behind the scenes stuff, they were essentially shorter people on stilts.
Basically, from what I could tell, yeah.
Hmm.
I knew they had stilts of some kind, for sure.
Like, basically the entirety of the legs, I think, or at least definitely the bottom part.
The bottom, like, a foot or two, yeah.
Which makes me feel like could have done something. There's a scene in the comic where one of them literally pulls his, like, half his arm off and hands it to the doctor, be like, you need a weapon. And I think if there's that much of a difference between the proportions of the people inside the suit and the suits themselves, they absolutely could have done that. Okay, Alex, favorite scene.
Oh, had it and I lost.
I actually have a second one.
God.
If it doesn't get brought up.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, I kind of brought it up earlier. I think I was going to go with something else, but just they're all Eric chaos in the house. They're like we're trying to get the meep off of Donna's leg, etc. Dad's home. Something smells nice. Tuna madras. It's just like that. Just again, the very much like I don't know what's going on, but I don't like whatever.
At this point, I just know not to ask. What's that lovely smell?
Yeah.
Again, very remarkable for someone who has never actually met the Doctor before. So I think I'm going to go with my scene as the first conversation between Shirley and the Doctor. Now, granted, it does start off with magic wand shenanigans, but I think it's just such a perfect way to introduce the character because she's showing how much knowledge she has on the Doctor, that she's, as the unit scientific advisor, she's researched all of it. Although, kind of, as an aside, the Doctor claiming to be unit's first scientific advisor, I think you might be giving Liz Shaw short shrift there. She was hired for the job before the Doctor showed up. he technically was first. But yeah, like that whole thing, like it showed so much. Damn it! I'm out of. Oh wait, I do have water. Take a sip of water because I keep coughing. It showed so much about Shirley's character just from the way she spoke, the way she reacted to things, the way nothing really surprised her except for the whole like we're on the same side, and that was interesting because like the Doctor didn't come out and say, "Yeah, but you're with the military." Like he didn't come out and say like I think a longtime Doctor Who fan knows why the Doctor might not trust Unit with everything. It's you can see why Shirley doesn't.
Yeah.
But like both the fact that it showed so much about her character that she seemed to be such a solid, a solid grounded character that we want to see more of. So that's why, yeah, that scene resonates with me. All right, and now things might get a bit heated because we have least favorite scenes.
So I get to go first.
Yep.
Actually, the follow-up favorite scene, what was it now? Oh, dang it, I had it and now I lost it. Oh, actually, no. I remember what it was now. Follow-up favorite scene. I was noticing during all that combat, all those laser blasts, and I'm like, is nothing getting damaged? I'm pretty sure nothing's getting damaged. All of a sudden, the next scene, the Doctor pulls out a wig and goes, by the way, I noticed that the car was hit multiple times and no damage. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
okay. Yep.
Yeah. So it being actually having payoff rather than being a mistake.
Yeah, it's payoff instead of like me going, why isn't the car taking damage? That thing got hit like a dozen times. What the heck?
Yeah, that was something I didn't quite notice the first watch through because
I
was paying more attention to everybody running. But no, the part that the Doctor stopped in the middle of running and was like looking at the cars, and he's like, before they got in the cab, he was just like, okay, the shots are bouncing off the cab and there's no damage before they even got into it. That I didn't really notice at that time. Like, I didn't notice him stopping and looking at it. But then when, knowing that it was an evidence that he brought up, I definitely caught it on the second look through.
Not to mention he stops and... I guess it's because the main focus is that he stops and checks the guy's pulse.
Yeah, and he goes, right. He's like, unconscious. He's not dead.
So that I caught the part that he was like, oh, the Rarth warriors aren't killing people, which I can respect how difficult it probably is for them to enunciate Rarth warriors in a way that does not sound like Wrath warriors, given the typical accents used by the BBC. But yeah, like it was very obvious. He checks the pulse and he's like, oh, they're not killing people. But like even before that he's already looking and is like, they're not blowing up cars. The humans are blowing up cars.
Yeah.
But on to least favorites.
Yes, least favorite. So we're back to this scene again. So not only did we mention some of the qualms with the ending scene where they're dissing the Doctor a bit, but my other problem is that they're like, yeah, we can just let the energy go.
Yeah.
So first of all, we're undermining the problems of the ability or whatever that was supposed to fry Donna. But I was actually kind of also sitting there thinking early on too, maybe since she had a child, maybe a little bit passed on, and maybe it won't actually fry her this time.
Yeah, that's
just
what
a
I was thinking.
possibility.
It's like the fact that it was split between two people made it easier to deal with. So I could kind of. It's a little hand wavy. It's still hand wavy,
but it's a better kind of hand wavy.
It's not entirely spitting on the face of Journey's End.
But then we're just like, oh, we can just disperse it, and they just let the freaking Time Lord energy fly in all directions. Do we not have an issue with this? Wasn't there an issue with this the first Christmas special of the series?
Yeah. Not to mention when Tennant finally regenerated, it basically blew up the TARDIS.
Yeah, when he regenerated, when Tennant regenerated, it basically blew up the TARDIS. This stuff should not be let loose flying everywhere. Not only will it drag the worst of the universe right to the Earth's doorstep and have a hell of a fight going on, because there's a ton of Time Lord energy coming out of here now, apparently.
Yeah.
But also all this damage they could do if they were to like not be able to concentrate in a proper manner, like something happens that suddenly breaks their concentration and it just rapid fire goes out and just bursts buildings at random. There's a lot, and I mean a lot of issues with that ending.
Yeah.
That ain't right. That was some oh Lord.
And the funny thing is even just I hadn't bothered to think of solutions around that. But as you were talking, I thought up two. One, hey, Sean, Sylvia, come here for a sec. And split it between more people. Like, maybe they figured out a way that they could transfer some of it to Sylvia and Sean so that it was even more spread out. Or, additionally, hey, Doctor, come here a sec. Take it back, thanks.
Also would work because he'd be able to handle it.
Yeah. Like, he literally in with Eccleston and Rose, if we're going to do a callback, he took the energy of the Eye of Harmony or whatever out of her into him and then back into the TARDIS.
So he would know how to transfer it back.
It caused him to regenerate, but this is just Time Lord energy. Yeah,
this is not as extreme as the TARDIS energy.
And even if it forces a regeneration, I mean, we already seem to have dealt, all the reasons why they said why he has that face again. Maybe it's time to move on to a new face.
And maybe he still got some time even as a leftover thing from doing it to help them finally.
Shit, considering that there's, we've had the Doctor gets fatally wounded at the end of an episode and then does an entire new episode before regenerating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, there's so many better ways to have done this that wouldn't break every kind of continuity since literally the beginning of the second season of New Who.
Yeah.
Please, Russell, this is literally you undermining yourself.
Yeah, pretty much.
It is. There's not even pretty much. It is him undermining his own work. Why?
I get wanting to just not have the meta crisis be a thing.
And we've already just discussed like three better ways of handling it. Why couldn't Russell go with one of those?
And we're not getting paid to think of this. So
Russell, hire us. Trust me, bud. We can write this better for you.
But moving on to mine.
Yep.
Yeah, I wonder what scene Alex is going to choose.
Well, the funny thing is, while there are plenty of things that I could go with, most of what I probably would have, we've gotten out of the way.
I was going to say, there seems to be one that made you more angry than the others.
I'm going to focus on one that, just feels like having it there was completely pointless, and that was the cold open. We didn't need that. It's so it's so much
for
that
maybe
feels
newbies,
like something.
But at the same time, I wouldn't bring newbies to this episode. I would have them warm up to it first.
What? In my problem with it is not that it exists; it's that it's part of the episode. If they had put that on YouTube as its own thing, as a lead-in and a tease for this special, that would have worked because it's very meta.
What I honestly think happened is I think they made the episode and then they screened it to people, and the people who were basically anyone, who's been watching Doctor Who for less than 15 years was like, I don't understand what's going on. Who is Donna? Why is she going to die? All of this. And they decided, and they were like, okay, the way to resolve this without confusion is to front load everything before the start of the episode.
And
I say that because I've heard of that happening with actual movies, And I could
Right.
definitely, like, I mean, the
Yeah.
rule generally being what? If it happened more than 2 seasons ago, it never happened, kind of. Which it's different for an anniversary special, but you
Yeah.
can't assume everyone's been watching for since 2008.
Right.
Army of Darkness. The evil got in my hand and it went bad.
Like in a way, if it had just been Tennant narrating and scenes of Donna going about her life, I probably would have preferred that more because that might have worked better. But them
Yeah,
just talking at the camera was very
which
like, what are we
it's
doing?
weird because the Donna stuff seemed to be from her conversation with Sylvia, except Sylvia's very clearly not there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
Like,
clearly like her talking to like a YouTube channel or something.
like it's a thing that could have been handled differently and better if they wanted to make it like a narrative point. But it's flat out again, like I referred to it in the summary. It's just last time when RTD was producer, like that many years ago. That's what it came off as. Last time on Dragon Ball Z, but like 15 years ago. Like that's what it came off as. It was just
15
like
years ago on Doctor
look at
Who.
and again, talking right at the camera, doing all this. Like freaking Capaldi did a monologue once where it's like, who the fuck is he talking to? But like he was
I think a
not
couple
looking directly
times.
at but he wasn't looking directly at the camera until like the end of it. He wasn't just monologuing to the camera for the whole scene. So it just felt very awkward. And again, if this as it exists was not the opening and it was its own thing on the Doctor Who YouTube channel as a prep and like everywhere on social media they're just like watch this if you need the catch up, this will explain what's going on. That'd be fine. But it's
Well,
like, you
will that reach the 8-year-olds watching it with their
know.
families?
I mean, I went into like New Who knowing jack all about like I can't even remember where I properly started watching New Who, but I was able to just go along for the ride. And there's like the scene with Shirley that you were talking about that came up earlier.
Hmm.
He's flat out states everything, basically everything that comes up in this cold
Yeah,
open again. So
it's
it
it's
feels like that's kind of pointless there.
it's it's real. Yeah, and that's part of why I think it had to do with test audiences, because it's like
Mm,
basically everything that the two of them are saying happens like what 10 minutes into the episode, but
yeah.
before that you have the scene where they meet, like after Donna and Rose have
Mm,
been shopping. And it's like I
mm,
feel like they showed it to test audiences, and at that scene they were really confused as to what was going on,
mm,
and or something. Because I mean,
yeah.
it's possible it was always written to be in there, in which case, definitely
Mm,
like definitely could have been done differently. I almost
mm,
feel like that should have just been like, actually we're starting off, the now is him
mm,
meeting with Sylvia, which
yeah.
I mean, no, sorry, with Shirley, which could almost expand that scene, and then be
Mm,
like, okay, we're going to flash back to an hour ago.
right. Or alternatively, the scene, like, have it just be a like stuff, a collection of scenes from Journey's End, and the end of the cold open is the 10th Doctor explaining to Sylvia and Wilf that she can't remember him or she'll die. You just have that, and that's all you need. You literally do a last time on,
That's true, yeah.
like just do it that way. You've got the footage. You use the footage in that cold open.
They're gonna be like, oh
Just
no, the
flat out
footage
use
isn't
it.
in 4K, but
Oh no, a lower resolution.
Yeah, like that would have worked. Just upscale it. Like just
It's not even
remaster
widescreen.
it. And yeah, no. Again, there were multiple ways they could have done certain things, and they didn't. But
all right, Bill.
All right, so that brings it on to me, and I'm trying to think of. I think what I'm really going to go with is the non-binary scene, just because, like, on one hand, non-binary representation is nice to have, but like that scene was so confusing and
awkward.
muddled, and it's just like
yeah,
the Doctor is just like, we're binary, but the Doctor is male, is male, female, non-binary, and more. And I'm like, you actually are the Doctor. So how are you one thing, but the Doctor is a different thing? It's, I mean, and the implication I mentioned earlier, where it kind of comes off as she's trans because she's part alien, which is not a takeaway you ever want to even include by accident.
right. Yeah, it's very like the Doctor and Donna saying that they're both binary, and then she says, "I'm not. I'm more.
And she's
I'm
not
neither.
even part of
I'm
the
more."
conversation.
Yeah, so it's like, what?
The predators are coming to Earth to steal children who are on the spectrum because it gives them superpowers.
And then like
this real plot point for one of the Predator movies.
Donna's like binary, 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 and then it just cuts to Rose just thinking non-binary. I'm sorry, like what? Like I get some of what they were going for.
Yeah.
But like if anything was confusing and needs to be rewritten, that it was not executed well.
Yeah, to the point that there are some people saying like, well, like they assumed Rose was just going to be a binary trans woman. So the wording and the dialogue in that scene is like, is she? Because we never hear any other pronouns than she used to describe.
And that's what I was talking with you about, and I was like, I was so confused. I was like, okay, so was she living as a binary trans woman, and then at the end of the episode she came out as NB? Because that's a takeaway you can take from this episode. Yeah. I don't think it was intended to be that way, but that's a takeaway you can come, because they never mentioned non-binary before that scene.
Right.
Like they never even she never uses they pronouns, and it's not I mean, obviously there are non-binary people who do, who only use he, him, or she, her pronouns. So that's not saying that they have to. But you have to, in some, they spend all this time building up trans. If you're going to do that, include non-binary in there. Yeah. And also, I don't think this came up because there of time earlier, but they kind of, if they're really having all these scenes in there for cis people, like, oh, this is what trans people experience, you're taking those same people who don't know the community and saying, okay, the one character we're explicitly pointing out as trans is non-binary, in a world when we already have people confused that don't know the difference and think all trans people are non-binary and all non-binary people are trans, which is not accurate. But we still have forms to fill out that say male, female, or transgender because people are not educated. So you're contributing to the confusion and disinformation at that point.
Yeah. Again, it's going to be like, I hope that this is the only story that this is a broken record for me, but well-intentioned, muddled execution.
Please be the only one. Please.
Yeah.
Please, Russell. This is supposed to be a big comeback.
So it's time for final thoughts, but we're also at 2.5 hours. So any final thoughts that you have to get off your chest that the episode is not complete if you don't say them, and then that's it?
Yeah, I can summarize my thoughts in about a sentence or two. A lot of really good stuff, but there seems to be a lot of really bad things kind of mixed in that kind of cloud what could have been a really good, at least highly rated episode. End.
Yeah.
All right, Alex?
Yeah, this is very... It could have been a lot better. I mean, it also could have been a lot worse. But again, like, broken record, well-intentioned, mixed execution. For the love of God, Russell, have people who are from these communities to be with you to write. Chibnall wrote Rosa with a black woman, as far as I can recall. So maybe take that under advisement.
All right, and yeah, everything I have to say has already been said. So, ratings.
3.
Okay, 3.0.
This could have been much higher. I am disappointed.
All right, Alex.
Despite all the negatives I have, I still think the lowest I can give it is a 4.
I agree with Alex. This had the potential to be a 5.0 episode, but there were too many drawbacks that dragged it down to a 4.0 for me. So that makes this a 3.67 or probably more.
I'm the negative one this episode.
You are. 3.67. Let's look quickly at where that falls. That is number 284 out of 455 things reviewed. It is on par with Smile, The Claws of Axos, Dragonfire, and it is not as good as The Daleks, Flatline, or The Idiot's Lantern. And it is better than The Reign of Terror, Night Terrors, Resurrection of the Daleks, and Full Circle.
And funnily enough, Nightmare of the Daleks, even though it's an audio, so we wouldn't otherwise bring it up, also had the exact same score of stuff we've covered this season.
All right. So let us know in the comments what you thought of this week's episode. Since it's brand new and you're watching this podcast, I'm assuming that you've watched it if you're listening. Don't forget to like the video since you're listened this far. And make sure to subscribe on YouTube to get our exports of new reviews. Or follow us on Twitch to get notified when we stream. Next time we continue the 60th anniversary specials with Wild Blue Yonder, written by Russell T. Davies and starring David Tennant as the Doctor and Catherine Tate as Donna Noble. See you then.
Good night.